Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this webinar to talk about this really exciting new program that we're launching here at the University of Massachusetts, Chan Medical School. I am here with my colleagues, Philip Zamor, Brian Lewis, Milagros Rosal. We'll all be happy to sort of field questions as we move forward. And I want to thank Natasha Hirabashani for her help with everything so far to put this webinar together. So we'll get started. So next slide, Natasha. So the goal of this webinar is really to describe the UMass Chan Fellowship Program. This is a program that involves sort of an umbrella program with two tracks, and we'll talk about these in detail. The Chan Early Independence Fellows track, and then second track, a Maraganore Early Independence Fellows track. So we'll talk a bit about UMass Chan, the Central Massachusetts Worcester region, and then we'll provide some specifics on how you can craft a very strong application. We'll talk a little about the application process, our timelines, and then how we can help you identify resources and support, and most importantly, answer any of your questions. Next slide. So the UMass Chan Early Independence Fellows Program. So the goal of this program is really to recruit exceptionally talented junior scientists with the potential to become independent investigators and to provide them with career development, mentoring, generous financial support, all of which, really strive towards fostering scientific excellence and leadership. We have the two tracks, so the Chan Fellows track. So this is a track that will really support investigators. We anticipate funding two of these at the beginning, who can develop an independent research program that aligns really with any area of excellence at UMass Chan Medical School. The fellows will be affiliated with our academic departments and centers, and really we will sort of find the right fit for our fellows based on their scientific areas of interest, and after they've had a chance to meet with our faculty and department chairs across campus. And then the second track is the RNA Therapeutics Institute, Maraganore Fellows track, and we'll hear a little more about that from Phil Zamor shortly. This is a track that will support one fellow who will develop an independent research program in the area of RNA biology or RNA therapeutics. And this fellow will be affiliated with the RTI Institute here at UMass Chan. Next slide. So meet the fellowship directors. So we are all here. So Brian Lewis and I are chairing the Chan Early Independence Fellow Track Search Committee. And then Philip Zamor, who's our chair of the RNA Therapeutics Institute, will lead the Maraganore Early Independence Track Chair and Selection Committee in that area. So let's talk about eligibility. So this is really an alternative to sort of pursuing the traditional postdoc sort of path towards becoming an independent fellow. Our anticipation is that candidates will sort of move quickly from their terminal degrees, so PhD, MD, or MD, PhD, within 24 months of completion of that terminal degree. That would be the eligibility window for this opportunity. And we're really looking for candidates from a wide variety of backgrounds, scientific and otherwise, and we're particularly interested in individuals from groups that are underrepresented in the biomedical research workforce, as well as all interested parties. And I just want to mention for the Maraganore track, MD only applicants are not eligible. So if for MDs out there, this would be most suitable for you to consider the Chan Early Independence Fellows track. Next slide. So just to tell you a little bit about UMass Chan. So UMass Chan is really an incredible environment. We're among the nation's leading medical schools in terms of NIH funding. This is based on Blue Ridge rankings in 2023. We're also a Tier 1 Best Medical School for Primary Care Education. That's based on the US News and World Reports in 2024. And then we have really incredible faculty. We have a Nobel laureate, we have a Lasker and a Breakthrough Award recipient, 8 members of the National Academy of Sciences, and 4 Howard Hughes Medical Institute investigators. You can see our campus here in the picture to the right. This is really a state-of-the-art research institution. We have incredible cores, world-class lab facilities. We just opened, most recently, our recent research building. So really wonderful facilities and state-of-the-art core facilities. UMass also is home to Mass Biologics. This is the only nonprofit FDA licensed manufacturer of vaccines and biologics in the US. And then through philanthropic contributions, we've recently been renamed UMass Chan. We were previously the UMass Medical School. And I think the sweet spot of UMass is it's really renowned not only for its scientific excellence, but it's an incredibly collegial, collaborative, and supportive environment, and a wonderful place to start your independent careers. So next slide. So Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the RTI.
So the RNA Therapeutics Institute has as its mission fostering collaborations between fundamental RNA biologists and faculty whose research programs explicitly aim to develop novel or more successful RNA therapeutics. And we span the range of RNA research from nematodes to structural biology, and from siRNA delivery to circular RNAs and innate immunity. Each Maraganore fellow will have 2 senior faculty mentors. We'll participate in the ICAP program, which is a career advancement program for new faculty here at UMass. We'll attend our annual RNA Therapeutic Symposium that has more than 500 participants from many continents and industry and academia, and be able to participate in our educational outreach program, Science Live, which brings high-quality experimental science to the Worcester middle schools. We also have, as part of the RTI, dedicated scientific writers to help you with manuscripts and grants, support for trainees, fellowship applications, and writing workshops. And then we have a monthly seminar series, a monthly tea time for the entire department, as well as a pizza chalk talk series sponsored by one of the labs in the department. And then finally, there are multiple cross-campus groups focusing on RNA and tools that facilitate RNA research. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. All right. So just to tell you a little bit about the Worcester area, so UMass Chan is located about 45 minutes or so from downtown Boston. We're the second largest city in New England, among the top 19 most diverse US cities. It's a very safe place to live. It's very affordable, especially compared to the Boston area and suburbs. And we're really centrally located, as I mentioned, a short commute to Boston, also Hartford, Providence. There's wonderful school systems, colleges in the region. And then this is really a beautiful part of the country with, great outdoor activities, hiking trails, beaches, mountains, and over 70 world-class cultural venues. And you can learn more about Worcester and all it has to offer. It's really also got a wonderful food scene with lots of wonderful restaurants and fun things to do. Next slide. Okay, so talking about the application. So this is what we're looking for, and this is true for both the Chan Fellows and the Maraganore track. So your application would be submitted through Academic Jobs Online. The deadline is December 1st, 2024, and we're looking for a cover letter, a CV, an anonymized research plan, and this is really where you'd summarize your prior research and describe your proposed research program that you would anticipate, with this fellowship, and then exclude any identifying information. And then in addition, we'd like you to include a personal statement that really describes your lived experiences and how they've informed your values, priorities, and career goals. And then in addition, we're requesting 3 letters of recommendation. So all of that sort of by December 1st. And then I'll talk a little bit about the kind of selection process and our anticipated timeline, and then Phil can touch on the Maraganore fellow process and timeline. So as I mentioned, our application deadline is December 1st. This is through AJO, and I just described the kind of components that would go into that application. And then we expect that from sort of early December through the end of December that we'd have initial review of applications. In early to mid-January, we expect to select a series of sort of semi-finalists that we would interview through Zoom with the search committee. We have a wonderful search committee for both tracks that will interview candidates. And then we expect to invite a select number of those Zoom interviewees to campus in mid to late February. And for a campus visit, we expect to do a symposium where we would have fellows present a short talk describing, their research accomplishments, talking about the work they've done to date and sort of how they might anticipate, developing a program here at UMass Chan. And then we'll have meetings where you'll have an opportunity to engage with our faculty and chairs and sort of help identify a potential future departmental or center home should you join UMass Chan as a fellow. We'll have campus tours and lots of opportunities to sort of see the institution and learn more about UMass Chan. And we expect to notify finalists in sort of February to March, and with an anticipated start date around July 2025. So that would be the Chan Fellows timeline. And Natasha, if you could go to the next slide, Phil could talk about the Maraganore process.
So the process is very similar for the Maraganore Fellows. The application components are identical to the Chan Fellows. The review of the applications will take place between December 1st and January 31st. We'll do Zoom interviews with semi-finalists and invite finalists to visit campus individually, where they'll give the department and anyone else who wishes to attend a seminar describing their graduate work and their plans for their independent lab, individual meetings with faculty throughout the day, lunch with students and postdocs, and a campus tour. And then in June, we plan to notify the fellow we select, and that person can begin probably between August and October.
Great. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the sort of structure of these programs, and it's identical for both tracks. So we expect that the Chan and Maraganore Fellows will be appointed as assistant professors on the non-tenure track. As I mentioned, they'll be affiliated with departments and or centers. Obviously, in the case of the Maraganore track, this will be through the RNA Therapeutics Institute. Fellows will have an annual, very generous support package of $440,000, inclusive of salary and fringe benefits. And then, as Phil mentioned, another highlight of this fellowship, which I'll talk about in more detail in the next slide, is this investigator career advancement mentoring program that we have here at UMass Chan to support early career investigators, and the Chan Fellows will also become a part of this program. And then we're also offering a childcare supplement for fellows with dependent children. And then at UMass, we have a number of wonderful DEI-focused affinity groups described here. I mentioned already, we have really state-of-the-art facilities and core facilities. Some of them are mentioned there on the right. We're happy to discuss any of this in more detail. Next slide, Natasha. So this is a little more about the ICAP program. So this is called the Investigator Career Advancement Program. This is designed and in operation now at UMass for several years. And this is really to support the retention and success of new tenure track faculty, particularly those that are underrepresented in medicine. But as I mentioned, the fellows will also participate in this terrific program, and this will provide career development support and tenure sort of evaluation and helping fellows as well as our tenure track fellows sort of advance in their career progression. So mentoring and lots of other interesting kind of resources, science writers, etc., are available through this program. Natasha, if you can just advance, so there's a number of so we've had this program in operation at UMass formally since about 2021. You can see we've had a number of tenure track faculty go through this. And then I mentioned some of the kind of program highlights. So it's really focused on mentoring, cohort-based peer mentoring models, but in addition, we'll also have mentoring committees and mentoring support for fellows as they advance through the years at UMass. Tailored faculty development curricula. There's a number of different topics that are covered throughout this program. And then in addition, there's a science communication support. So there's a dedicated senior scientific writer who helps fellows and tenure track faculty with writing grants and manuscripts and sort of coaching and helping develop writing skills. And then I think really important part of this program is, the interaction with a cohort of early career investigators, both tenure track and also the Chan and Maraganore fellows will become a part of this community. Next slide. This just kind of highlights some of the groups and some photos of some various activities, fun activities, as well as some of the panel discussion groups. There's a research symposium at the end of the year where fellows present their work and tenure track investigators. And then there's lots of guidance and opportunity for sort of peer mentoring through this mechanism. Next slide. Okay, so now it's time for some questions. I just want to point out two of the key players here who can field questions for anyone who has questions that we're not able to address here in the webinar. So for the Chan Early Independence Fellows track, Natasha, who's here on the Zoom, her email address is here. Natasha is a program manager in our Office of Health Equity. And then for the Maraganore Early Independence Fellows track, Angela Mesmer-Blust in the RTI, who's the Senior Scientific Advisor and co-founder of Science Live. She's an associate professor in RTI, and both of them will be happy to address any questions. And I guess now we'll take some of the questions that are here in the Q&A.
Yes, so it looks like the first couple questions are related. They're asking, does the terminal degree have to be completed at the time of application? Or can they apply in the last year of graduate school?
Yeah, so I think, we would anticipate that a lot of graduate students who are sort of wrapping up their PhDs or MD PhDs, this would be the right time to start to think about this program. So of course they'll have to have completed their terminal degrees by the start date, but not necessarily by the application date.
The next question is this call open to international scholars?
Yes, I think absolutely.
Okay, answered live. Wonderful. So this one is a little bit more individualized, but based on their research focus, which is selection of DNA atomers, particularly for small molecules, excuse my pronunciation if that was incorrect, They're interested in the RNA therapeutics group. They would like to know whether it should be considered as a potential path if they wish to pursue DNA atomer-based therapeutics. If that would be the right track or if the other track would be better, I guess.
I would apply to both tracks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you have been to the AJO where you can apply, there's a question there that asks which track you would like to apply to, or if you're applying to both, and that's how we'll know which evaluation group to send you to. I guess this next question is what would happen after the 3-year period, meaning they're outside of that 2-year window that we're looking for?
I think it's referring more to what happens after the 3 years as a fellow.
Oh, yeah, probably.
I think that's how I interpret that. Yeah, so we would anticipate that, you know, these fellows would be highly competitive to remain at UMass Chan and become tenure track investigators here in different departments. So that's absolutely a possibility. Not a guarantee at the outset. It will depend, you know, on the how well people do, but I think that's certainly a path. You know, we anticipate that these fellows will be highly competitive, and I think we will want to retain those who do really well here.
Well, for the Maraganore fellows, the program is 5 years long.
Yeah.
But after the 5 years, then people would apply for faculty positions or any other job they're interested in. And of course, a successful fellow might well receive an offer from the RTI as well.
Yeah, I'll just chime in to add as well that on the Chan Fellows track, the initial commitment is for 3 years. There is the option to receive 2 additional years of support as a Chan Fellow. And part of that is just in recognition of the fact that science progresses. You know, we cannot predict how fast science will progress. And so as part of the program on both tracks, you will have a mentoring team and you will meet with that team regularly. And they will be, you know, evaluating your progress, assessing your progress. So if you are making good progress, but you are not yet quite ready to hit the job market, there is the option on the Chan Fellows track to receive up to 2 additional years of support to get you to that point where you would either, you know, apply and be considered for a tenure track position here or apply broadly.
The next question is, will the fellows be assigned to a department similar to their research interest and be hired through that department when the fellowship ends?
So I think that's a little related to what Brian just talked about. I think the first part of that is, you know, our goal is to match fellows based on their scientific interest with the wide array of, you know, scientific areas across UMass Chan in any department or center. Obviously, the Maraganore fellows are, you know, going to be affiliated with the RTI from the outset. You know, again, whether fellows will, you know, stay at UMass after that 3 to 5 year period, I think that is, you know, that will depend on factors, availability of positions in given departments. But again, I think very successful fellows, we anticipate, you know, wanting to keep them here at UMass and transition to tenure track positions across our academic departments.
The next question is, how closely are you looking for a fellow's research to match with what is already present at UMass versus new directions? Do we need to have a specific faculty in mind to work with, like some mentored fellow programs?
At least for the Maraganore program, we are looking for a person who both personally and their research will add considerable diversity to our faculty. So we definitely would prefer that the person is setting off in a new and risky and inventive direction that none of us have thought of.
Yeah, and I think, Brian, you can feel free to jump in too. I think that's true also for the Chan Fellows track. I think we're just looking for dynamic and exciting scientists who have diverse interests, and, you know, the excitement can come in any area of science. I think we're absolutely not, you know, trying to match people with our existing faculty. These will truly be independent positions.
Yeah, I would just emphasize that. I think that's really critical. And the other thing I should say is that we are not going to assign the fellows to a department or center. You, as the incoming fellow, are going to select the department that best aligns with you. We are going to work with you to try and identify the departments or centers that align best. And so if you come for a campus visit, you'll meet the chairs of those departments and centers. And other faculty in those departments. So the idea is to really have you identify what might be the best home to nurture your nascent independent research career. And then our job, right, really is to sort of support that progress.
This next question is about eligibility. This person has a clinical psychology degree, PhD. Would they still be eligible for the program? It seems like much more of the support is targeted for STEM graduates.
That is maybe a little trickier. I think it's, I would encourage people who are interested to apply, and the selection committee, are open to considering all areas of science. But certainly I would say this is more lab-based research, broadly defined in terms of the area.
There are many areas of psychology that are more basic science related, like neurosciences and so on.
Yeah.
And there would be departments that might have, I'm thinking neurobiology, for example, that do more clinical translational research. That might be a good fit.
Yeah.
These next two questions both have to do with international scholars. Would you sponsor visas for international scholars if needed, and what immigration support would be provided for international scholars?
So I would say that we're well used to, having international scientists here at UMass Chan. We have a very experienced international student scholars office. It's not uncommon, it's very common. I myself, for example, came as a foreign investigator here. So yeah, I would not be deterred by that. Obviously, each individual's circumstances are somewhat unique and require unique visas, but we would be working hard with fellows if they were competitive for this program.
The next question, is there a formal pathway for moving from this non-tenure track assistant position to a tenure track position, or is this meant more for a temporary position?
It's a position with a fixed timeline, at the end of which you would apply to tenure track positions at any institution that you thought would best serve your career, including UMass. But there would also be the potential for the department who sponsored your fellow position to also make you an offer.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I'm not sure I quite understand this question, but what is your vision about basic biological science versus therapeutic / medical science?
We are in favor of both. We love both.
Yep.
All types of research are welcome. If we get an offer to be an assistant professor before the 3-year time period is over, can we accept it, or are we on a contract?
I can give the answer for the Maraganore fellows, and then Kate can answer for the Chan fellows. If you got an assistant professor before the 3-year timescale was up, you would be featured in our newsletter as the first success of the program, and we would be incredibly proud of your accomplishments.
Yeah, I would echo that. That's a good answer.
I'm looking for the next one. I guess we can just re-answer this, but just checking, who has got the PhD over 2 years ago are also welcome?
No.
No, this really is a hard rule. So we really want people who are within 2 years of receiving their PhD.
How do the career impacts of choosing a postdoctoral position compare to accepting an assistant professorship for a recent PhD grad in academia? Is it more advantageous to take on an assistant professor role right after graduation, or would a postdoc be more advantageous at this point?
Right. I can give the example of my own graduate student who was a Carnegie Fellow. Uh, he was very successful as a graduate student, and he had really strong sense of what he wanted to do in his own lab, and he had all of the skills it would take to start his own lab. But the system of recruitment normally looks for a postdoc. And so he applied to the Carnegie's Fellow program, which was in fact the first fellow program in the nation. And he was there for 5 years, had his own postdocs, he had his own R01 support, and then he was recruited away by Duke, where he's now an assistant professor. And I think he would tell you it was fantastic. But you have to know what you're going to do in your own lab. You have to have a real vision of what research questions you want to answer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think, the mentoring and the guidance, the goal is to help, people who really have those ideas that they write out of their PhD, who are ready to launch their own research programs, we'll foster their development and try and support them in every way we can to ensure they're successful. But yeah.
Yeah, and if I can, I would just only add to that to say that, I think that decision is going to be a very individual decision that you make. And so I think it's important that you, think critically about, where you are and what you want to do next. Right? If you have, as you've heard from both Phil and Kate, if you've got, some ideas of your own about, scientific, really exciting scientific questions that you wish to pursue, this really might be the opportunity for you. If you are, looking for a senior faculty member, maybe to provide more of the scientific ideas and the originality, at least in the early phase of this, then maybe this might not be the program. I also want to reemphasize that yes, you'll have these fantastic ideas, but we're not just going to drop you into a lab space and have you do this on your own. As you heard through Kate's presentation, you're going to have a mentoring team around you. You're going to be part of ICAP. And so you're really going to get the support to help you develop, not only the scientific skills, but the lab management and leadership skills, the budgeting skills, the grant writing skills that will really help you flourish as an independent investigator.
So this goes along, I think, with what you were just talking about, Dr. Lewis, saying, would fellows in either track have their own lab space? Can they recruit graduate students or postdocs, or do they have to be joined by another advisor on the tenure track line?
For postdocs, they can have their own postdocs. For graduate students, they would need to be co-mentored by a tenure track faculty member. And most certainly, the fellows would have their own lab space. At the RTI, we envision starting a fellow with space for 4 that could grow if the person's research program grew and needed more space.
Yeah, I think that also addresses the Chan Fellows track, depending on the department, the fellow would be part of a department with independent space within that department. And again, I think the ability to hire research associates or technicians or postdocs, and then through co-mentoring, have the opportunity to recruit graduate students.
And similarly, the fellow would have a mentored support for applying for grants, both internally and externally, including NIH and other grant mechanisms. And both programs will provide active support in grant writing.
And that was the next 2 questions. So thank you for that, Dr. Zamore. Do fellows receive sufficient administrative support?
Yeah, I mean, I think that often is managed at a departmental level, but we would expect that fellows would have administrative support, certainly grants support as they put together grant applications internally or externally. And then in addition, you know, we'll have support at the level of the Office of Health Equity, certainly for the Chan Fellows program. The ICAP program also comes with a lot of additional support. So yeah, we do expect that there will be an abundance of administrative support.
And I want to stress that in the RTI, we assign administrative support based on need, not seniority. So a fellow with a real need for administrative support would receive as much as required.
The next two questions have to do with specialized lab equipment. Will there be space provided for specialized equipment? Does the lab come with this equipment? Is there a startup package in addition to the yearly budget?
So we don't anticipate additional startup packages for equipment purchases, but I will say, and this kind of speaks to our institutional, collegial, collaborative environment, you know, we share equipment across departments and even between departments. And then, as I mentioned, we have an extensive collection of cutting edge research cores that fellows will also be able to actively work with and engage. So it would be unusual to not be able to find the sort of equipment and technical capability that a fellow will need if they were to join here.
And most departments on campus, if not all, have the tradition of finding resources to buy equipment for faculty who need them for their success. And the fellows would be part of that same culture. But you know, I think the majority of lab equipment would come out of the annual budget of the fellow.
Let's see. This is kind of singular question, but what if you completed your PhD in May 2022, did 1 year of postdoc, and paused for a master's that will be completed in December? So I guess they're asking what would be seen as their terminal degree, their master's degree or their PhD degree?
PhD.
Yeah.
If their training won't be complete until 2029, would it be possible to defer the Chan Fellowship until then?
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with the Finberg Physician Scientist Training Program, and that also just launched, and we're super excited to have applicants to that program. I would say if your clinical training won't complete until 2029, you know, I would consider applying for this Chan Fellowship program in future years. So right now would not make sense. I think it would be too early. But please do apply to the Finberg Physician Scientist Training Program.
Can the fellow use the science he generated at UMass with him if he moved to a different university after the 3 to 5 year period?
Definitely. Yes,
100%. Yeah, they'll be independent scientists just like anybody else. Yeah.
And if you have NIH grants, they'll go with you.
Yeah.
Will the proposal be evaluated on strictly scientific merit and current expertise from our PhD training? Is it encouraged to mix in techniques areas outside of our PhD training, evaluation on training potential?
So I think if I understand the question and if we're not answering this spot on, please add an additional question or comment in the Q&A as a follow-up. You know, I'm interpreting this question as, can you propose things that are outside the sphere of what you did in your PhD studies? And I would say absolutely, right? I mean, we want to see your exciting scientific questions. And so if you are pulling, you know, techniques and technologies from fields that might be quite far away from what you did, as a PhD student, that is perfectly okay. I think we want to assess where you are in your development as a scientist. We want to assess the, the robustness and the excitement, the novelty, the innovation of what you propose to do as an independent fellow.
Wonderful. The next question is, can you explain what anonymized proposal means?
Let me take this one since it's how we've always run our searches. So it means that when one of the readers evaluates your proposal, they should not be able to identify what lab you're coming from. So should not list any publications, should not be able to identify what institution you're coming from, whether you're male or female, your identity in any other way. And the only thing that we can get out of it should be your science and your ideas. And it will be, if you make a mistake and it's not fully anonymized, we have a non-scientist who reviews them briefly and will redact any information that you accidentally put in.
Yeah.
Are applications reviewed on a rolling basis, or are they reviewed after the December 1st deadline?
I would say we will begin to look at applications as we receive them, but the intention is to look at the entire pool and evaluate them, especially through the anonymized research plan. But we're excited about this program, so we'll probably start to look as soon as we see some applicants. So apply early.
If you come from a public health background and your work falls in the T4 community engaged research track, can you apply for the CHAN track?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either.
Milagros, I think maybe this one's
Yes.
best for you.
That relates to more translational research, like the farther part of translation. And I think that most of what we have been talking about has been lab science. So it would not be appropriate for this program.
If you are a dual career couple and you receive an offer to the CHAN Fellows program, is there potential for negotiating a position for your partner?
We often, I would say, have, dual career, applicants. I would say both should apply at the outset, for sure.
And depending on the career stage of the partner, right? I mean, if the partner is looking for a traditional postdoc, that will probably be relatively straightforward at UMass.
Yeah.
If they're looking for a tenure track faculty position, then they'll need to apply to those that are being advertised that year at UMass.
Yeah. But certainly staff positions, postdoc positions, we would work with fellows to help identify a potential home for their partners.
What qualities would a successful application ideally have for initial consideration?
Maybe Brian would like to take a shot at this one.
Sure, I can do that. So, again, in terms of what we're looking for, so we are looking for outstanding productivity as a graduate student or early stage postdoc. And we're looking for exciting ideas, right? So we're looking for how innovative your proposal is, how how cutting edge it is, how well grounded it is in terms of what is already known, right? So so we're looking for exciting ideas, but obviously they need to be have solid sort of foundational grounding. And then we will review the personal statement. And so the personal statement really is your opportunity to tell us, we're not giving you a lot of space, so it's one page, but this is your opportunity really sort of to tell us about your goals, tell us about the things that motivate you, tell us about your philosophy around science, how you envision being a leader within the scientific realm, and all the aspects that go into that. Should also say that, we are going to review the statement and the personal statement and the research plan initially, but we will have your entire package, right? So our committee is going to review your CV. So we'll do that anonymized research plan first, but then the entire committee is going to see the entirety of your record. And so we're going to evaluate all of that, right? So we will eventually see, making up this number, your 10 papers in Science, Cell, and Nature, and that obviously will come into consideration, but that's not all that we're looking for, right? We're really looking for someone who is ready to take that step in independence, who we think that our environment and our culture can really sort of help to nurture into an outstanding independent investigator.
Yep. Wonderful.
Exactly.
For either program, is there an opportunity to establish a mouse colony?
Yes,
Absolutely. Yes.
absolutely. We love mice.
All
I
right.
have a mouse colony myself. I'm in favor of it.
Yeah. We have wonderful mouse facilities.
We do. I can also attest to that. When I went here as a student, I was in charge of a mouse colony. So yes, mouse colonies. For the research plan, are you looking for R01 style proposal with aims or a brief paragraph like the example provided?
So the anonymized research plan is 2 pages. And in those 2 pages, we want you to provide us with a description of your graduate work, or if you're an early stage postdoctoral fellow, some of your postdoctoral work as well, and then describe what you plan to do going forward in your independent position as a fellow. So it is definitely not going to be an R01 style. You don't have the space to do that.
Can a fellow apply for an NIH K-99 because at this stage you technically have transitioned already?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. I think we did discuss this. Yeah, because for the R0 or for the K-99 phase, you have to still be in postdoctoral training. You can't be in an independent position.
Right. But the other thing I would just say to that is that because you do have an assistant professor appointment, non-tenure track, right? If you have the science, if you have the preliminary data, you are eligible, and we will certainly encourage you to apply for R01 grants from the NIH or similar funding from other agencies such as the American Cancer Society, DoD, and various private foundations.
Are these fellowships conditional on yearly performance/evaluation or continuous for 2 to 3 years?
They're continuous.
Yeah.
We're making a commitment to help the fellow succeed, and that obviously is not something you can evaluate on a yearly basis. That takes time.
Yeah. I can imagine for the Chan Fellows track to sort of go beyond the initial 3-year time frame, obviously will be dependent on an evaluation process and the trajectory of the fellow.
Do you need the recommendation letter before the deadline, or only shortlisted candidates need to provide recommendations since you do not need any identity information on the proposal?
I see. So you should put identifying information on your CV. It's just the proposal that's anonymized. The letters of recommendation are required by the deadline, and there should be clear evidence in the letters of recommendation that the people know who you are. Right.
Those should not be anonymized.
Exactly.
For the Maraganore Fellow, is there a preference for research in RNA therapeutics, or could projects also be related to basic RNA biology, e.g., at mechanisms of splicing, RNA condensation, etc.?
We have no preference. Both are wonderful, and we have faculty in roughly equal numbers who work on completely fundamental problems and faculty who work on more translational therapeutic problems. And I myself work on things that are almost entirely obscure and useless. So I really do love basic biology.
For unselected applications, will there be specific comments back to the applicants?
No.
Probably not, because it's hard to anticipate how many applications we will receive.
I think we touched on this a little bit, but your vision of successful research statement, do you prefer more risky or more well-grounded? I think it just needs to be well thought out in general.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thought is exactly what will succeed. Thank you, Natasha.
Sorry, I'm trying to like sift through these at the same time as announcing them. But is there a start date strict or flexible, especially if you need to wrap up the work in current lab and not leave it incomplete?
I
Highly
would say there's flexibility. Yeah. Probably within sort of a year, let's say. But we'll look at individual cases.
How specific should the future research project section of the anonymized research plan be? For example, are you just summarizing research questions and hypotheses? Or are you giving more detailed information about the measures, etc.?
Yeah.
I think
it's go ahead, Kate.
No, I was just going to say there has to be enough for us to evaluate your ideas. So not just sort of a list of cool questions. I think a little bit, again, it's a relatively short proposal, but enough that we can capture the excitement and the potential, impact of what you're proposing. And yeah, I don't know, Phil, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that you make it clear why you're passionate about what you want to work on, why other people should share your passion, and how you have a feasible but perhaps risky innovative approach to answer the research question you've posed. And again, that's should all come together to make for a thoughtful document that really captivates us.
I think we answered all the questions, and if your question was not answered live, I did type in some answers that were already answered. So if anyone has any other questions, please put them in the chat. Otherwise, I think we answered everything.
I would just say the contact info is here for those who have additional questions and didn't get a chance to ask them. I think we have another info webinar coming up in another couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, October 24th from 2 to 3 p.m.
Okay. And then feel free to reach out to Natasha or Angela with additional questions. And we are looking forward to receiving your applications.
Yeah, and I see there are a couple of questions that came in at the end. I think the first is, can a fellow create international collaborations? I think the answer to that is yes, we want you to create the collaborations that are going to help you move your science forward. The second question may be a little bit tougher. So what's the probability that this fellowship will be renewed next year? So will we be recruiting another cohort of fellows next year?
Yeah, so I would say we anticipate that this will not be, certainly for the Chan Fellows, that we will do this again in future years. It may be 2 years from now. I don't know, Phil, if you want to comment on that. I think this is, we're still figuring out this kind of for both tracks, but we hope to go more than just this initial round. Like that is our goal. So perhaps 2 years from now, certainly, I think is a feasible timeline to see the next round of applications being open.
Yeah, for the Chan track, yes, that is what the dean has indicated.
And for the Maraganore Fellows, we certainly hope to be able to have the program continue every other year, just like the Chan Fellows, but we'll have to see how our efforts to raise financial support go in the next year and a half.
And maybe I'll just add one last, just so it's clear to folks. So if your work is in the area of RNA biology, obviously the Maraganore Fellows track aligns well, but you are still eligible to apply to the Chan Fellows track.
Yes.
And so because these applications are going to be reviewed by separate committees, okay, it's certainly possible that you could be selected as a candidate that gets moved forward on one track, but not the other. We anticipate that these will be highly competitive applicant pools. And so given the nature of the caliber of applicants, that is not necessarily an unexpected outcome. So, and then in future years, even if we don't specifically have a separate Maraganore track, there is certainly the option for folks who are working in RNA biology to apply to the Chan Fellows track and become part of our community that way.
Yeah. There's a couple of last minute questions. Someone asks if staying in a postdoc lab and finishing a Nature paper is a better strategy than becoming an independent fellow and gain the benefit of being independent. I would say the Nature paper is the path to getting into this fellowship program. So, depending on what else you have in your toolkit, I think, putting the most competitive application forward makes sense.
Yeah.
Might be better to get that Nature paper and then apply next time around.